My parents excluded me from their will, passing everything to my brother instead, citing that I was never good enough. I didn't protest. Years later, when my brother wasted away their inheritance, and they found themselves with nothing, they approached me with a proposition they assumed I wouldn't resist. Life has a way of surprising us with unexpected twists. I never imagined I'd have a tale worth sharing, but it seems fate had other plans. Whether this story leans more towards entitled parents or pro-revenge, I'll leave that judgment to you. To provide some context, I am a 38-year-old man from a family where favoritism was not just evident, but almost a tradition. My parents, Nathaniel and Vivian, had 2 sons. My older brother, Ezra, aged 40, and me. Ezra was hailed as the golden child, the prodigy, the one destined to bring honor to the family. As for me, I was merely present. The preferential treatment began subtly. In our childhood, Ezra always received the best of everything. Top-notch attire, the larger room, the latest gadgets. I was left with his scraps. Our parents would justify this by saying he was older, so it was logical, but even as a child, I always knew there was more to the story. Growing up, things only deteriorated further. No matter what trouble Ezra got into, wrecking the car, failing a class, or getting into fights, our parents always found a way to defend him. It was always excuses like, he's just going through a rough patch, being the eldest is tough, or he'll get back on track. Meanwhile, if I made the smallest mistake, like forgetting to take out the trash, I was labeled lazy, irresponsible, and a disappointment. When Ezra went off to college, our parents used up their savings to cover everything for him. Tuition, a car, an apartment. It was all about investing in his future. But when it was my turn, suddenly they couldn't afford to support me and suggested community college instead. I had to take out loans, work multiple jobs, and figure things out on my own. No matter how hard I worked, it was never appreciated by them. The constant comparison to Ezra, "Why aren't you as ambitious as your brother?" only added to the pressure. Then came the moment that should have stung, but at that point I was just numb. A few years after college, they sat me down and revealed that they were leaving everything to Ezra. Their savings, their house, all assets. My mother uttered without hesitation, "Not a penny for me." Her words hit me like a cold gust of wind, leaving me stunned. "You were never good enough," she added, with my father silently concurring. Rather than argue or plead, I simply walked away, forging my own path and achieving success beyond their expectations. I distanced myself as every interaction revolved around their disappointment in my accomplishments compared to my brother Ezra. Despite their apparent disinterest in my life, they reached out for a rare dinner together. It became clear that my suspicions were correct. Ezra had squandered our family's wealth through poor decisions and reckless behavior. The revelation confirmed what I had always known. I had chosen the right path for myself. I hope this helps. For the first time in years, they actually wanted to talk to me. We met at a nice restaurant where my usually composed mother appeared nervous and my father was quieter than ever before. When my mother finally spoke up, she said, "We've been thinking, and we have a proposal for you." I leaned back, arms crossed, and just waited, raising an eyebrow, but saying nothing, unwilling to make it easy for them. Vivian glanced at Nathaniel, expecting him to begin, but he remained silent, a departure from his usual demeanor. Taking the lead, my mother started, "Your brother has been struggling. Things have been difficult for him." I stayed quiet, allowing her to squirm. After a brief hesitation, she continued, "We know there's been distance between us, but we're still family, and family should support each other." I took a sip of my drink just to see if she'd get impatient. She did. "Ezra has made some mistakes." Daniel finally spoke, his voice measured and careful. That was new too. He was usually the type to bark orders and lay down the law. But now he wasn't in control, and he knew it. I tilted my head. "What kind of mistakes?" Vivian sighed dramatically. "Well, business has been challenging, the economy has been unpredictable, and Ezra's investments. He lost everything, didn't he?" I cut in. She flinched. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "It was an unfortunate series of events, but the point is he's trying to recover, and he needs a little help getting back on his feet." I let out a quiet chuckle, shaking my head. They really thought they could dress this up like it was some noble cause, like I just nod along and agree to help. "And what does this have to do with me?" I asked, feigning curiosity. Vivian leaned forward slightly. "Well, we were hoping you could offer some support, just temporarily." "Support?" I repeated, "You mean money, Vivi?" Anne pursed her lips as Nathaniel cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Don't say it like that," he said. "You've done well for yourself, we know that, and we're proud of you." I almost laughed at the sheer audacity of it. "Proud?" I echoed, letting the word hang in the air. "That's funny. You never seemed all that proud before." Vivian's smile tightened as she responded, "Oh, come on, that's not fair. You know we've always wanted the best for you." I couldn't hold back. "That's interesting because I seem to remember sitting at our kitchen table years ago, while you told me I wasn't good enough, and now suddenly you're proud now that Ezra's ruined everything." Nathaniel's expression darkened, clearly uncomfortable being challenged but unable to argue back fully. Vivian exhaled sharply. "Look, we don't need to rehash the past. What matters is the present. Ezra is struggling, and we thought." There was a heavy silence as Vivian trailed off, not denying the unspoken implication that they thought I would fix it. With a finger tapping the table in contemplation, I tried to make sense of the situation at hand. "It seemed clear to me that you had given him everything. Your savings, the house, unwavering support. You ensured that he never faced a day of hardship, while I had to earn everything I have through hard work. And now that he has let it all slip through his fingers, you turn to me, the son who was not deemed worthy of inheriting anything, asking for my hard-earned money to clean up his mess." Vivian's lips tightened at my words. "It's not that simple," she offered. Nathaniel then spoke in a controlled, subdued tone. "It's not just about Ezra. We're facing difficulties too." I observed the weary expressions on their faces, the slight outdatedness of their expensive attire, and their desperate attempt to maintain composure amidst the chaos engulfing them. It became clear that they were not solely seeking financial assistance for Ezra. They too required it for their own sake. "So what's the plan?" I inquired. "If I agree, how much are you expecting me to contribute?" Vivian hesitated before responding. "We were thinking around." Nathaniel cautiously stated, "Alone," and I echoed, "I expect you to repay me." They both eagerly nodded, as if vocalizing their agreement would make it binding. "And with what exactly will you be repaying me?" I inquired, tilting my head. Silence filled the room. A smile touched my lips. It was evident they had nothing to offer. They were seeking a loan they couldn't fulfill, presuming I would give them the money out of a misguided obligation. And the irony? They were oblivious to the imminent consequences. Leaning in slightly, I allowed the tension to linger. "Let me clarify," I uttered calmly yet resolutely. "You excluded me from your will, deprived me of inheritance, openly deemed me unworthy, and now that your favored son has brought ruin upon everything, you anticipate me to rescue you." Vivian's jaw tightened and Nathaniel's demeanor stiffened. "We are still your parents," they insisted. I maintained my smile. "Indeed, I am well aware," I remarked, placing my napkin on the table and flexing my fingers as if preparing for something significant. "Hence I shall propose my own terms." As both their expressions fell, I paused. Sighs shifted, hopeful, relieved. I took my time, glancing down at the table, pretending to consider my words. Then I met their eyes and said, "I'll help you, Vivian." Exhaled a breath. She must have been holding Nathaniel's shoulders, relaxed. The relief in their expressions was almost comical. But I added, leaning back slightly, "We need to be clear about what help actually means." Nathaniel frowned. "We're not asking for much, just enough to get back on our feet." "Oh, I know," I said smoothly. "But here's the thing, I don't do handouts, and I definitely don't do favors for people who have made it clear that I don't matter to them." Vivian scoffed. "That's not fair. We raised you, didn't we? We fed you, put a roof over your head." I held up a hand. "Don't. Just don't. I have no interest in hearing how I should be grateful for the bare minimum of parenting." Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. "Then what's your offer?" I smiled. "I'll buy the house." Vivian blinked. "What?" "You heard me." I folded my hands in front of me. "You're broke. The house is yours. We're EPHRAC. Is this your final asset? Sell it to me." Nathaniel's expression turned grim. "This house has been part of our family for generations, and yet you were ready to transfer it to Ezra without a second thought." I shrugged. "I'm presenting you with an opportunity. Sell it to me, and you'll have enough to make a fresh start elsewhere. You may not maintain your current lifestyle, but you won't be left without a home." Vivian's mouth moved wordlessly, her face torn between anger and desperation. "We can't sell our home to our own son." Why not? You were fine excluding me from it previously. I let that sink in before adding, and let's face it, you don't have many alternatives. Nathaniel tightened his jaw. We could sell to someone else. I nodded, pretending interest. Sure, feel free to explore that option. But the current market conditions aren't favorable, are they? How quickly do you think you'll manage to sell? Meanwhile, I have the funds readily available. I could see them grappling with the situation. They detested this, abhorred the thought of surrendering the house. Vivian expressed her frustration at not being in control anymore. We'll need to consider it, she stated coldly. I remained relaxed as I replied, take your time. But remember, my offer is time sensitive. The longer you wait, the less I'll be willing to pay. Nathaniel's gaze shifted to me in disbelief. You wouldn't, he challenged. I couldn't help but smirk. Are you sure about that? I retorted, knowing that I wasn't bluffing. I was aware that they had no other options and would eventually have to come back to me. A week went by without any communication from them. I purposely let their call go to voicemail when it finally came. 2 days later, I received a message from Vivian expressing interest in discussing my offer. I deliberately waited another day before responding, simply saying, let me know when and where. They were uncomfortable with being on the receiving end of delays, but they had no other alternative. When we reconvened, I noticed they appeared more fatigued and disheveled than before. I understood the reason why. I had been monitoring the situation with the house closely. Despite their efforts to find another buyer, the sluggish market and lack of competitive offers left them in a difficult position. Additionally, Ezra was facing pressure from creditors. Eek. I wasn't sure of the exact details, but I heard whispers that he'd taken out some loans he couldn't repay. They were desperate. Nathaniel cleared his throat as I sat down. We've considered your offer, Vivian nodded, forcing a stiff smile. We're willing to sell. I leaned back in my chair. Great, but the offer has changed, Vivian stiffened. Excuse me, I shrugged. I told you my offer would go down the longer you waited. The market isn't getting any better, and my interest has decreased. Nathaniel clenched his fists. That's ridiculous. You have more than enough money to buy it at the original price. I gave him a slow, knowing smile. Oh, I know I do, but that's not the point. I watched as realization dawned on them. This wasn't about the money. This was about making them feel what I had felt. Powerless, unwanted, like their fate was no longer in their hands. Vivian's nostrils flared, but she pressed her lips together, forcing herself to stay calm. And what is your new offer? I slid a contract across the table. I'll buy the house. I lowered my offer to half of what was originally proposed to Vivian and Nathaniel. Vivian's face flushed with anger at the reduced amount. I tilted my head and explained that it was a business decision, not robbery. Both of them sat there seething with bitterness, clearly resenting the situation. I could see the tension in Vivian's clenched fingers and Nathaniel's tight jaw as they reluctantly prepared to sign over the house. It was more than just a property exchange. They were relinquishing their pride, superiority, and sense of control. I remained calm as they hesitated, silently hoping for a change of heart, but I stood firm. Vivian's hands trembled as she hesitated before signing, glancing up at me with desperation in her eyes. She questioned my decision, but I reminded her that they had already put me in a difficult position. With a shaky breath, she signed the document. Nathaniel followed suit, signing the papers with forceful and angry strokes. Yes, as if the ink itself could convey his anger. After finishing, he pushed the contract in my direction, giving me a fierce glare. I hope you're pleased, he said sharply. Picking up the papers, I casually skimmed through them before securing them in my folder. I then looked him straight in the eye and grinned. Oh, I am, I replied. And just like that, the house became mine. But here's the twist. Instead of keeping it for myself, once they vacated, I transformed it into a rental property. The first tenant? Ezra's ex-wife. When I approached her, she was overjoyed. Apparently, Ezra had left her in a dire financial situation. His spending habits during their marriage had been reckless, and when things turned sour, he cleaned out their joint accounts, leaving her to deal with the aftermath. Struggling to find a stable home for herself and their child, the opportunity to reside in the very house that my parents had once gifted Ezra must have felt incredibly symbolic to her. She wasted no time moving in. In a gesture of gratitude, she even sent me a luxurious bottle of whiskey along with a note. The man simply stated, best landlord ever. Meanwhile, my parents downsized to a small shabby rental in a neighborhood they once looked down on. Gone were the luxuries they were accustomed to. They now resided in a modest two-bedroom apartment with loud neighbors and outdated appliances. Despite their complaints, to anyone who would listen, sympathy was scarce, as most knew the circumstances that led to their decline. It was rumored that they were unhappy, not just because of their new living situation, but also because they couldn't bear that I, the son they never believed in, had emerged successful. As for Ezra, it seemed karma had caught up with him. His reckless behavior had consequences, as he lost his family's fortune, had no safety net, and was drowning in debt. He was last heard couch-hopping between friends who quickly, wondering if I'm in the wrong for asking my parents to sell me the house at a lower price. Should I have been more understanding, or did they receive fair consequences? Share your thoughts. And if you like this tale of karma and retribution, make sure to engage by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Leave your comments below. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.